Know the difference with Annex Wealth Management? We provide comprehensive investment and retirement planning tailored to our clients' needs. And that ranges from starting people on simple paths all the way to services designed for business executives and owners. With business owners, there comes a point when it's time to put a plan in place to explore a sale. And that's what we're going to talk about here. And to do that, Brandon Lehman, Director of Annex Private Client, a wealth manager and a CFP at Annex Wealth Management, is back. Welcome.
Danny.
Selling a business is something that is a process. It's not overnight, but how far in advance should planning begin in order to sell a business? Your experience with many business owners, at what point do you feel that they're like, yeah, I think I should think of the next step?
Sometimes it can be driven by a life event, so it's rather rapid, or they're approached by a buyer and it's, again, rather rapid. But in reality, a lot of people start thinking about this years in advance, several years in advance. We were just at a conference and we were talking with the groups there and presenting. And as you went around the room and talked to folks, it seemed like 5 years was kind of the magic number in most people's eyes. If you think you're going to do this, you should start now. So if you get 5 years is a time frame that it takes for you to start prepping. Now, again, everybody's different, but it seemed at that conference particular, that was the rule of thumb everybody was working with.
So business owners are good at what they do. They built this business up. One of the skill sets they might not have, and you can't expect that they would, is selling a business. What kind of team do you got to put together for that?
You have to put together a really strong team of multiple individuals on multiple sides. So first, you're looking at, obviously, your business accountant, your controller, obviously working closely with your CFO, but then you're looking at maybe your personal accountant, and maybe they're one and the same, but sometimes they're not. So how is the transaction going to affect the business? How is it going to affect you personally? Two different discussions, but have to be had together. The other side of it is attorneys. A really strong legal team is incredibly important, from the transactional side of the business, making sure contracts are right, and working out a fair deal for the seller and the buyer. There's a lot of nuanced things from the tax code that are going to get the accountants and the attorneys involved on both sides, and you want to have that. But then you also want to look at your personal attorney, because this is going to change the way your life is set up from an estate planning standpoint. This could be a large liquidity event, and now you have thought about your estate plan in the past, but maybe you haven't put enough effort into it, and now it's become real because it's been monetized. That's where you really need that team. Then you start looking at wealth managers and a team that's going to guide you through the process and try and help you figure out what's next. There are so many people, but if you build a strong core, so I'd say your wealth manager or financial planner, your estate planning attorneys and your CPAs, that is the core, but you need somebody to quarterback that team and kind of lead it. That's usually where, at least at Annex, we step in and try and quarterback all those different folks, especially on the personal side.
To sell something, you got to value something, right? And I'm sure there's a huge spectrum of accounting practices, right? You might have somebody they've just always kind of done it themselves. It maybe not the big box of receipts or the back of the envelope, but there's got to be a huge scale of what the thing is worth and to determine the right value.
So that's the hardest thing, is right, what is the correct value, fair market value? And there's so many things that go into it, from overhead costs, looking at revenues, EBITDA, right? Earnings before taxes and depreciation and amortization is something that is viewed a lot, and then you put a multiple on that. Well, every industry is different, and we see it all at Annex. It's truly a blessing, because I've seen service industries, I've seen construction, we've seen it all in terms of what type of business sales have gone through, and we've seen all types of multiples. Now, the multiples have been really good over the last couple of years. Interest rates have changed all that. But still, in the end, it's what is the value of the business? In reality, it's not always the number that the owner has in their head. It takes a strong team of experts to put that all together. And that's where then you bring in your valuation experts from outside. And I think what is important is finding an expert who understands your field, your industry, because every industry is different and can vary wildly.
We're with Brandon Lehman, Director of Annex Private Client, CFP, Wealth Manager at Annex Wealth Management. You talked about it a little bit earlier, but there's a lot of money coming in all of a sudden when you have sold a business, and it's more than depositing in your checking account. I mean, there needs to be a plan for that.
There needs to be a plan on multiple levels. The first plan is, how are we going to pay taxes, right? Because there is going to be a tax liability. There's no way around it, right? You were successful. You built a successful business. Now you got to pay Uncle Sam for that success. I see people argue, well, I've always already done that. Well, yes and no. But as we go down that path, the first plan is, where are we going to put this? How are we going to account for taxes, and working with the accountant? And that's where Annex comes in and really starts building out that plan. Then it's the long-term goals. business owners have had such a long time of strong cash flow for the most part, right? Business has been good. They've been living off that cash flow. That's what they're used to. And now they're going to move away from cash flow altogether, at least coming in at a standard clip from the business. And now it's, okay, how do we take this lump sum you've received and replace that cash flow? That is a difficult conversation sometimes, depending on what that business is sold for. But overall, it's just creating a plan and a goal.
And this is why we've got Annex Private Client. We often describe it as people with high net worth and complex situations. This is certainly one of those.
This is definitely one of those. And this is where having such a great team, I was just meeting with an individual before on our team. We're talking about on Monday, we get together, all of us, and we talk about what is coming up, different opportunities for clients, and we brainstorm as a team to make sure that we're covering all the bases.
Brandon Lehman is director of Annex Private Client. He's a CFP. He's wealth manager at Annex Wealth Management. Significant experience guiding unique needs of business executives and company owners, including the sale of businesses. Brandon, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Danny.